All right, everyone. It must be 9 p.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday because it is the Unfound Live Show with myself as your host. I hope everybody is doing well out there. By the way, this is what my hair looks like when I don't take a shower far enough in the past for it to totally dry by the time show's time starts. That's just the way it goes. But I'm doing great. Things going on here. Actually had a handyman come up to my place today. He's not quite done, but I think most of you know that the place I live in right here is rented. And so any things that need to be done, I don't have to pay for. The joys of renting, in contrast to the joys of home ownership. And it's about a year ago, by the way, that I got my refrigerator. The old one went, and it was about a year ago, right when COVID started. It was when I got the one that I have now. Anyway, some tile over in the master bathroom by the shower was trying to fall out. And so the guy came up, and he's still working on it, and he's going to be back tomorrow to finish up. I think what's happening is that there was water leaking from the shower onto the outside of the shower. And so the water's getting behind those panels and doing something. Don't ask me. I couldn't remember the last time that I've been in Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm not a home improvement guy. But so we had that going on. So I had a visitor today for about an hour. I just kind of let him do his thing while I was doing my thing. So let's see who is in here. Louise says she's wondering if anybody can see her comments. Well, I can see your comments, Louise. Hello, Fishing. Karen, I got a question from Karen that I can't wait to answer. Kathy, Delane, Jasmine, Cherie as the moderator, Ruth, Twinkle, LaFord, Indy, and Melissa, and Satin B, and Susan. Great to see all of you as we get this show started. It's weird. I don't know if all of you realize this. I really haven't brought this up, but it is amazing that I've noticed, of course, can see the numbers of the people who are watching right there. You can't see it, but I can see it. It's like right there. And it's amazing that we usually have more viewers towards the end of the program than we do at the beginning. That is, it's become a thing in 2021. I don't know what's going on there. That wasn't the way it used to be, but that's the way it has become. And so I think we'll have like 20% higher audience viewing in the second hour than we do in the first hour. Maybe that's those Central or Pacific time people could be. But I'm not going to change the time that this plays. I think 9 p.m. Eastern is a happy medium for everybody. What are some of the Fishing says, I live in Central Time Zone. I still look forward to this, but I have to get up so early. It's hard to stay awake for the whole show. I'm sorry, Fishing. Like I just said, I think 9 p.m. Eastern is a nice middle point for everybody, but no time is going to work for everybody. Trying to please everybody, please nobody. But yeah, and the shows do go long. It's just got a lot to talk about. Sheree says, off to a bad start when I have to delete my own comment. Yeah, kind of, Sheree, but at least you're honest. It takes a lot of courage to delete your own comment, so I give you that credit. Ed tearing up the shower. What's on the outside of the shower, Twinkle? On the outside, but like I said, I don't know the first thing about it, but that's what he was telling me. As Melissa's saying, do not forget to like the video, and what she means is you will find on your device that little thumbs up video. If you could hit that, I would appreciate it. My assistants would appreciate it. This makes it more likely that this video will be seen by anybody looking for true crime shows, true crime information on YouTube. You know, I say that every week, and I will probably bring it up later. Louise says, you have changed the time, haven't you? It used to be 2 a.m. UK time, but now it's 1 a.m. Louise, that's because we got this thing in the United States called daylight savings time, which is really stupid. It's like an American thing. You Brits would surely be too smart to do that. But we change our times for half the year. We change our clocks for half the year. Now, there are a few states that don't do that, Arizona being one of them. But so the time is not changed that I'm doing the show. It's just been that we changed our clocks a couple weeks ago. I think it'll be a week and a half ago. So there's your answer, Louise. A little bit of United States trivia for you. Yes, we have a thing called standard time or regular time and then daylight savings time. And I think there's a good chance that we're going to get rid of that sometime soon. I think most people would rather be on the time that we are now, where the sun is later into the evening. Because when we go to the other time, it gets dark around 5 o'clock here, which is so weird. So there you go, Louise. I hope that answers your question. I've not changed the time of the show, though. I've not changed. And come on, Eileen. How are you, Eileen? And yeah, there we go. Hello, Ed and crew. Hello, Beauty. Good to see you. So yeah, there you go, Louise. Maybe that's better for you. It used to be. Now it's not as late for you, Louise. Maybe that was to your advantage. Delane says they keep talking about ending it in the U.S. Not sure why we still do that. Yeah. But it's been beautiful here. This past weekend, I went to see my sister in Leesburg, Florida, which is like a 2-hour drive. A cousin of mine who lives kind of in central Pennsylvania came down there, and she's renting a house in Leesburg. And then my sister and her husband from Ohio came down to see her. And then on Saturday morning, I got up early for me anyway, and drove over to Leesburg, got there about 11 a.m., hung out all day. I posted a couple videos to my private Facebook page showing these cars that are boats, and they're very, very rare. And we got to see 5 of them at one time go by the house and in the water, because this house is right on this little canal type of thing. And we played some games. And so that was fun, and had some great food while I was over there. And then I left at about 6 and got back here to Clearwater Beach around 8, and then proceeded to do Unfound work because I have such a fantastic social life. But that was my Saturday. But what I was going to say regarding that, it was very chilly. This past weekend, it was down into the low 60s. But now the last couple days, it's been beautiful. It's been back up to the 70s. Today was a beautiful day out there, although I was not out there. I was out there yesterday doing a little disc golf practice. But today, too much to do, preparing for Friday's episode. So I got to see my sister, got to see her husband, got to see a biological cousin of mine, and it was all good. We had a great time. It was a really, really good time, and it's a very unique drive. I don't go over to that part of Florida very often. I think I've only been through Leesburg once before, and I think that was back in December. Went over there to play some disc golf. So very nice lake called Lake Harrison over there. And so that's what I did this past weekend. Louise says, we put the clock forward in about a week and the clock back in the autumn by an hour. So you UK people do that, Louise. Oh my, Louise. Oh my. Okay. Valerie says, hello, everyone. Ed, your hair is getting long. Looks nice. My sons have long hair also. Well, I would be interested to hear, Valerie, how they take care of it. That might be interesting to me. Laura says, my dad lives in Leesburg. Looks like a nice area, Laura. like I said, this house that my cousin is renting is right on this little canal. It has a dock in the back. Once again, she's renting it for like a month or two. She doesn't own it. And looks very nice. You know, you could get on this boat and take this little canal, and it takes you right out into the lake. So it seems pretty nice. So yeah, Laura, hello. So other than that, what else has been going on? I'm going to talk about who I've been talking. I'm not going to mention any names, of course, but people I've been talking to the last couple of days. But the other thing that's going on is that I have to lose a couple pounds, ladies and gentlemen. I have to lose a couple pounds. So I've put together a diet. I'm going to start counting calories. I'm taking sugar and the like carbs, as much as I can out of my diet. And the sugar part of it probably won't be as big a deal as like the carb part, because I do like sandwiches, bread, of course, and rice and stuff like that. Potatoes. I love those. That'll be a bigger deal than the sugar. So, but I got to do it. I got on the scale a couple days ago and I said, this cannot continue. I wouldn't say that I look bad. I would say that for 50, I'm okay. But, and I'm fairly, muscular. I mean, I've watched my weight go up, over many, many years. You have to keep in mind, like when I graduated high school, I was the same height I am now, but I was probably only like 152, 153 pounds. And then probably when I moved to Vegas, when I worked at Star Trek, I probably was in the 160s, 65, 168, somewhere in there. And let's just say probably, and then I really started lifting weights after that. So there's going to be a factor of that in there, but I really need to get down to probably a good number, probably would be 175, maybe even lower than that. So I got a ways to go, but I'm making that commitment to myself because I have been. One of the things, it's easy to do, I think, looking in the mirror at yourself probably isn't quite the same as seeing yourself on video. And when I say video, I don't mean the video, right here. When I'm seeing full body video, like what I'll do is I'll video myself disc golf practicing to check my form and see where things are going right and things are going wrong. And just looking at the video, I'm like, you need to lose a few pounds. I realize, Ed, you're not 25 anymore, but come on. So that's the plan. I've counted calories before. I can count. I can add. It's not going to be any fun, but I think I'm vain enough to do it. So there's that. Cherie, are you saying that you say, me too? So you're saying you need to go on a diet too, Cherie? Okay. I need to lose about 13, somewhere in there. And I'm, that's where I need to go. Luis says, I know it's ridiculous, the time thing. I think it started because of the farmers having to do with the harvest and stuff, but it's kept on going. I think that's the reason it got started here too, Louise. But now, yeah, these days it doesn't make any sense. Laura says, Leesburg, known for lots of golf there. I guess there's disc golf there too. There are some courses up there, Laura, for sure. Twinkle says, life without carbs. Is it worth living? I think it is, Twinkle. I know it's tough. Carbs, pasta, bread, potatoes. Those are probably the main things, at least in my diet as it existed, that are tough. And of course, carbs are important. If you're working out or you're going to be doing an activity, it's well known that before games, football games, etc. Pasta is a very good thing to eat. But if you're not a professional athlete and everything, you probably want to limit your carb intake. And that's what I have to do. Melissa, Ed, I'm on a low carb too. It gets easier as you go along. Thank you for saying that, Melissa. That gives me some hope. Melissa, would you happen to be watching on your big TV tonight with Ann again? Let me know about that. Louise, thank you. I see your comment. Velvta, Russia got rid of the time change and went with summer hours all year, but then quit that and went to the winter hours all year. Those darn Russians. They had it right, and then they got it wrong. But I think just to simplify everything, let's just keep it to one time. Delane says you need to try Whole30. That must be some sort of diet or something, Delane. I've never heard of it. Eileen, same. Taking sugar away and committing to get 7 hours of sleep at night. The sleep is going to be hard for me. Eileen, sleep is no problem for me. I'll have you know that I hit the bed and within 10 minutes, I'm asleep. I can sleep anytime. Trust me, if I were to just lay my head down on this computer right now, I would be asleep in 10 minutes. It's just the way I am. So that won't be the issue. It'll be the not eating stuff that will be the issue. I could sleep all the time. I'm a great sleeper. I'm like my dad is a horrible sleeper. My mother was a fantastic sleeper, and I take after her. Puma says I'm a low. Nothing like talking about diets to get people talking. I love it. Puma, I'm low carb also. I love it. Feels so much better than before. Good for you, Puma. Congratulations, sticking to that. Indy 50 is the new 40. I think so, Indy. I think it is too. Think it's hard. And Louise here is making a good point. I think a lot of people have put on weight during COVID for sure. Fishing is laughing. So hard to do. Delane, my daughter and son-in-law do a Whole30 at least a couple times a year. Very successful. Okay, Delane. And I think I missed what? Yeah. Let me I think I missed a comment up here. Okay. 50 is the new 30 is what I meant to say. Well, while we're at it, Indy, let's just make 50 the new 20. Then I can start getting with that. No, I wouldn't want to be 20 again. No, I would not want to be 20 again, because that would mean I was in college and all that stuff. I just do not want to do that. 30, that would be okay. 40, at 30, I think I was in a better situation than I was at 40. And I'm better in a situation at 50 than I was in any 40, 30, 20. So I think if I had to go back to a number that ends with a 0, probably to 30, not to 40 or 20 or 10. I'd want to go back to probably 30. The year 2000 was a good year. Valerie says, I make sure they keep it conditioned and brushed. Their hair out. They're 6 and 14. They refuse to cut their hair. Well, you know what? If they had grown up in the Dentzel house, Valerie, with my parents, it would have been a cold day in hell before I was ever to, grow my hair long at all under Ed and Loretta Dentzel's reign, for sure. For sure. That just would have been no way. And in fact, I will tell you this. This is funny. When my dad was here back in December, I got together with, Lisa Kassoon, the sister of Chip Campbell. She was the guest for that episode going way back to 2017. And her husband, Lutchman, and Lisa's sister. There's 2 sisters. Was it Donna Sue or Donna Kay? I'm just going to say Donna so I don't mess up. And Donna, I think her boyfriend, we all got together to eat like a week and a half ago. And it was at that time that Lisa told me, when we got together back in December, when my dad was here, that when we were leaving, and I didn't even notice this, my dad pulled Lisa aside and said to her, could you please try to get him to cut his hair? That is a true story. Lisa told me that. And she told me that when we got together last Monday. Whereas little does Dad know, Dad was talking to the wrong person because Lisa, sees no problem with my hair. So there's that. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, in the Denzel house, a 6-year-old or a 14-year-old Ed Denzel Jr. Would have been expected to cut his hair, or he would have been tied up, and parents would have cut his hair themselves. So it is if you are single, says Shri says to Twinkle. Thank you, Beauty. I thank you for the compliment. Thank you. Eileen says, I can also sleep anytime, but I wake up at 4:30 every morning, so I have a tough time getting 7 straight hours. I see. Yeah. Yes. Melissa says, yes, you are live and in color. Well, then I got to do this, Melissa. How do I look? Does my nose look really big, Melissa? I think it does. Yeah. All right. And Twinkle says, I'd love to be 40 again. Hey, Debbie, hello. I just joined and glad to be here. Debbie, well, good to be here. We're talking about hair and diets right now. This is how the live show is. It's a little more laid back than the episodes are, a little more potpourri of topics. So this is not unusual for us to be talking about diets and hair to start this out. We will eventually get to some very important true crime news and information. So welcome, Debbie. Thank you for finding the live show. Twinkle says I'm still a baby. Okay. All right, Twinkle. Everybody's saying hi to Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. Laura says that is hilarious. Dad is not digging the hair. No, he's not. Not at all. This says my nose looks perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you. So yeah, that's what's going on. I decided that I have to lose a few pounds. So I'm good at putting plans together and outlines. So I just have to follow it. And I'll let you know how that goes. So I'm going to try to limit myself to about under 2,000 calories a day, taking out the sugar, taking out the starch, or taking out the carbs, kind of the same thing. And we'll see where that goes, and we'll see if I can keep my sanity. Other than that, I got a new phone right here. New phone. I got it from T-Mobile. I decided it was time. And so it came in last week, and on Friday, I took it to the T-Mobile store, and they changed over everything and switched everything. And I got to keep my old phone, although it doesn't work. This is an LG Velvet. It's about the same width as my former phone, which is an LG V30, which I had since about 2017. But it's a lot longer. It's probably at least a half inch longer, but it's about the same width. I'm liking it. Very fancy. About the same thing. Just a little faster. It has 5G. And I've already conducted a couple interviews on it. And that's working out. And I also got a tablet with it. A Samsung tablet. So we'll see how I am going to incorporate that into doing work for Unfound. I just haven't figured that out yet, but I'll figure out something. So yeah, I got a that's going on. Ruth says we have a mass tragedy. Oh my. What is going on where you are, Ruth? Sorry to hear that. I don't know where you are, Ruth, but take care. Jeez. Indy, is the camel still around? Heck, he's still around. He never wants to make an appearance here. You know, it's either he gets to hog the camera or nobody does. You know, he's not going to share the camera with me. So that's why he never shows up here. He's off doing his own thing. Yeah, but I was talking today that, you know, he's doing this March Madness bracket stuff. I don't do that stuff anymore because I don't pay attention to that anymore. He did his bracket. His bracket's already busted. He doesn't know what he's doing. You know. And so he was complaining about it. And, you know, He's hard to live with sometimes. LG phones are good. I think so. I've had LG phones for about the last 10 years, Debbie. I agree. Ruth, oh, yeah, 10 people. Oh, you're in Boulder, Colorado? Yep, that's what happened there, Ruth. Yeah, I know all about that. Yep, happened a couple days ago. I did hear about that. Sad. Bad. All right, I did not know you were in Colorado there, Ruth. Okay. So that's some of the things to start off the show, just revealing some of my private life and diets and phones and practicing and disc golf practice and seeing my sister. So those are some of the things that have been going on since you saw me last Wednesday. So let's get into some of the items that I brought to the show tonight that I wanted to talk about. You should know that I do have a couple questions here to answer from a couple people. But if you'd like me to answer any of your questions, make sure that you type them there. Once again, if you're watching this video, please give it the thumbs up. Please like it on whatever kind of device that you are using. And that helps us out with the YouTube algorithms. The little thing that looks like this. Also, if you are not yet a subscriber to this channel, maybe Debbie is a new person finding this show, please become a subscriber to the channel and make sure that little bell button is clicked. So when we upload new videos, you'll know right away. As I usually do when we get to new items for the live show, I like to start with the poll that we conduct in the group starting on Saturday morning, and it goes throughout the week. Everybody can offer their opinion. Who's in the Facebook? She says she is. Okay. All right, Debbie. She is a subscriber. All right, great. And so that would be for the disappearance of Ceiha Taylor, a disappearance that happened not very far from where I live. If you checked it out, I did a video regarding her disappearance. I drove over there and drove on the same streets that she would have been on that day. In the group, a vast majority of you said that you believe that somebody else put her car there. Can't say that I'm surprised by that, but you should know in the think tank, and the think tank is a special get-together that I have with some longtime Unfound listeners, people who contribute to the program at the premium level of $12 a month and above. On Think Tank, it is a live show that I do on Sunday evening that's limited. It's very private and just for them, where we get into the really, really deep details of the disappearance that is covered for that week. And you see, Cherie says that's how you can become a member of the Think Tank. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. I have to admit that virtually the entire think tank and myself believe made the decision that Ceiha herself put her car there. I will not speak for the fellow think tank people. They can speak for themselves if they'd like to talk about it in the group or somewhere else. But for me, and this is what I wrote in the Patreon blog that I also write at Patreon, just becoming a Patreon member at $2 a month can give you access to all the blogs I write. I write one every week for whatever disappearance we're covering that week. Once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. The way I came to my decision is that it's obvious, I think, the Ceiha was going through something that day. We can't ignore that her mother admitted that she was addicted to methamphetamine. We know we've covered enough disappearances. We know what that does to people. We've talked about that particular drug many times. I think we also have talked about opioids many times, even though they're kind of the exact opposite, what they do to the body. But we know that they're highly addictive and cause people to do things that they normally wouldn't do. For me also, it's just hard for me to imagine that somebody who did something to Kai that would have her car would ditch the car on railroad tracks with the door open, with the car running and phone on the ground. It's just a little hard to imagine. Certainly not impossible. It's certainly physically possible. It's just a little hard to imagine somebody making that choice, especially in that area of Florida where there are a lot of back roads and a car could be ditched somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and maybe not be found for a long time. Hers is right there for everybody to see. It's just a little hard to understand if somebody who harmed Kaya did that. The general assumption is that people want to get away with crimes, not get caught committing crimes. I think Kaya was just going through something. And I think this is an issue that we more and more have to accept, that if we are covering the disappearance of addicts, once again, we have to look at the facts as they stand for that particular disappearance. But we have to realize that addicts can do the same amount of drugs over and over and over and have the same reaction. And then all of a sudden they do that same amount again and they do something completely opposite, completely irrational, completely illogical that makes no sense to anybody. We have to realize that. That is a fact. And that is more likely to happen with people who are addicts and people with mental illness than it is for people who don't have addictions, whether to alcohol or drugs or anything else, or don't have any mental illness. So, and once again, on top of everything else, you never know what's inside a person's head. We can't read minds yet. That is the reason I came to the conclusion that she was going through something. It's, if we were to believe her conversation with Tiffany and the way Tiffany explained it, I wish I could have spoken to Tiffany. I didn't get to. It sounds to me like Kaya was manic, paranoid, kept saying, you wouldn't believe it if I told you, you wouldn't believe it if I've told you, you wouldn't believe it. But she never did say what that was, even though she was talking to a friend of hers. I think that's a huge sign that something was going on with her that day. And then a couple hours later, there a car is. So that's the conclusion I came to, the way I came to the conclusion. Although it seems everybody in the think tank thought the same way, they come to their conclusions their own ways. But I can certainly see why a lot of people are going to think, well, somebody ditched the car there. Just looking at it, I can understand that too. If we knew what happened, we could just go solve it right now. So that was the poll for Ceiha Taylor. And as is often the case, what people say in the poll is different than what the conclusions that we come to in the think tank, even though sometimes we come to split decisions in the think tank like we did. We've done quite a bit this year. So there's that. I will, of course, be talking to Kanitha, Kaya's mother, sometime, hopefully within the next month, to talk about the episode once I think enough people have gotten to listen to it. And I'm sure we'll have some conversations about that. Deborah says, personal perception is reality for people, no matter how different than our own. Yep. All right, moving on to this. Let's not forget that less than 24 hours from now, I will be appearing with Dr. Telesco on her channel, the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice YouTube channel that they have, their school's YouTube channel. That will be at 7 p.m. Eastern. That will, of course, be live like all of the other interviews that we've done. And we will be talking, as I've already revealed, we will be discussing the disappearance and now we know murder of Janelle Matthews. This is a disappearance that we technically have covered, although technically we went about it in the exact opposite way, in that I interviewed a guy who was a suspect, Steve Pankey. We now know, since I did this interview with Steve, he has now been charged with her murder and is awaiting trial here in 2021. We will be going over all of that tomorrow evening, myself and Dr. Telesco. You should know that I've never had a chance to talk to anybody in Janelle's family, but so we will be just going over the general facts. I think these are facts of Janelle's disappearance that are very easy to understand. But because the facts are somewhat, once again, easy to explain, that I anticipate a lot of our discussion will be about Steve Pankey and about suspects and the like, and everything that he has done, Steve has done since 1984. Some would say to kind of infuse himself into the case. Of course, there are people out there who believe he didn't do it. There are people who believe he did kill Janelle. And even in myself and my assistants, we differ on whether Steve Pankey killed Janelle Matthews or not. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. I'm sure it will come up with Grace. And we'll also talk about how it even came to be that I interviewed Steve and the standard that I used to be able to talk to somebody like that. We will cover all of that in the hour. Those hours go so fast. That's 60 minutes, all of them, going back to the first one last year. They all go so fast. But we will do our best to try to pack as much information and analysis into those 60 minutes tomorrow evening. Once again, 7 p.m. Eastern. So that would be, I guess, 11 p.m. your time, Louise. I guess 4 hours ahead, right? Yeah. Louise says, regarding Kaya's case, putting the car on the train tracks could have caused the train to derail. Absolutely. Little did anybody know that those tracks are rarely ever used anymore, Louise. Screaming says, odd about her shoes. Certainly odd. Certainly. Sheree there is giving the link to Dr. Telesco's, the school's YouTube channel. If you'd like to check that out, you can even see the previous interviews and shows that I did with Dr. Telesco. You should know that I think the shows that I've done with her are the most popular videos on that channel, and that's nice. And there, Kathy says that. Following up. So Dr. Telesco tomorrow night. You should know how it all came about that we're going to discuss Janelle's murder, even though it was a disappearance for 35 years. Dr. Telesco had asked me, have you covered any, children who have gone missing? And we have. It's not as you know, not a huge priority at Unfound for reasons that I've gone over and over many times. But we do have a list. Mikkel Biggs, Debbie Lowe, that I gave her a list, and she picked out 2 different ones, and she goes, well, which one do you think would be a better discussion? And I hate to make decisions like that. But what I did say to her was, I got to admit, Grace, I'm a little surprised that you didn't pick Janelle Matthews's, because that was in the list. And she got back to me. She says, well, let's just do that one then. Okay. So that's how that happened. And so we'll get to talk about it tomorrow night. And so what that means for me is I will tomorrow at some point go over all of my notes. Don't know if I will listen to the entire interview that I did with Steve, because it's like 3 hours long, but I will look at my notes. And, because I've talked about that interview quite a bit since then. I just need to make sure that I understand what he says about that period of time, where he was. And if you'll remember, he said that his father-in-law came over and spoke to him. And I'm going to have to brush up on that information before tomorrow evening. And sometimes it is one of those situations like, when you're going to take a test in school that you cram. Right before the test, you really cram everything. You go over it right before you take the test. Sometimes that's what I have to do when I know that I'm going to be talking about some of these disappearances, because I think for all of them, I can tell you the general facts. But if we're going to get into those the really fine details, then I really need to go back and look at notes and start to think about things a little bit. So once again, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on her YouTube channel, not on Unfound's YouTube channel, although eventually the video will be playing here as well. Okay, let's take a question. And the first one comes from Jasmine, who I know is in the group. I said hi to her very early on. Louise says, I will be watching tomorrow. Good, Louise. I'm glad to hear it. Louise asked me, do you ever listen to David Paulides? I don't think we want to go down the David Paulides avenue, Louise. I've talked about him before. I'm going to be very honest that I do not take him seriously at all. At all. And for reasons that I've talked about before. I don't know if I've ever written about it anywhere, but I've certainly talked about him and on this show before when other people have asked. And that's really all I want to get in. I could do a half hour on him alone. He's more confused than ever. Yeah, that's exactly what he wants, Louise. So yeah, you're getting him very well. So Jasmine asked me, other than Unfound, what is your most favorite job or career? Jasmine, without a doubt, and I've talked about this before, but I don't mind talking about it again because it's going to be relevant to something I'm going to talk about here in a bit, is it would easily be my 4.5 years I spent at Star Trek The Experience. It's one of those situations. I enjoyed it there, but, it was, you're working for Viacom, so there were great benefits. You had a 401k, great health insurance, dental insurance, and everything, but really, we didn't get paid that great. You could make ends meet, and it was a job that allowed you to do other things. You could have a second job, and it got to the point where we worked 4 days and then out off 3 days. So you could pick something up on those other days and be fine. But that job itself did not pay great, but everything else about it was pretty good. And I made a lot of friends working there, and I still keep in contact with them. And I know what they're doing. And I know that if I were to ever to move back to Las Vegas, that I'm sure that I would be seeing a few of them, because once in a while they do get together here and there. So Jasmine, that is easily the answer that I would give to you. After that, that would be number 2. Of course, Unfound's number 1. So working at Star Trek is number 2. Probably the third would be, I liked the stage managing stuff that I did from like 2005 to 2009, 2010. That was some fun, and I got to meet a lot of interesting people and everything. But I got to tell you that probably when I was a volunteer and then I became office manager of the Cinevegas Film Festival, which doesn't even exist now. I was started as a volunteer there in probably May or June of 1999. And then maybe by August, I was getting paid to be the office manager, and I continued that work through like January of 2000. And that was before I worked at Star Trek. That was pretty cool too. Being part of a film festival that was coming together, having films come in and look at them, and, arranging all that, then all these filmmakers coming to Las Vegas and having some parties and everything else. That was very cool. In addition, our office was right on Las Vegas Boulevard in Las Vegas, right there at the corner, not right at the corner, but just north of the corner of Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard. So right beside the MGM. I think it's something else now, whatever that plaza is called now. But Polo Tower, the Polo Towers. That's what it was. The Polo Towers, there was like an office complex there. That's where the office was. So every day, 5 days a week, I'm living on East Tropicana at the time. I would drive straight up Tropicana, make a right, go in, pull in, park, and work right there on Las Vegas Boulevard. All these tourists and everything walking around. all the time that I spent doing that. There was a girl, maybe a couple years younger than myself. Her name was Deborah, who also worked there. We had a great time, putting that all together. And then it only continued for a couple more years, and then it kind of went away. But that was probably third. So it'd be Unfound first, Star Trek second, and doing that, working in that film festival probably third. It was all really good. Got to meet some famous people working at Cine Vegas. Got to meet William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist. He directed The French Connection, which is one of my favorite movies. A lot of cool stuff. That was cool. So Jasmine, that is my answer. And of course, when I worked at Star Trek, I got to meet like some Star Trek actors and people as well. So, okay. Speaking of that, let me see what some people have said here. Velvet says, did you notice that Google Maps took away Street View from the neighborhood when Steven Kocher was last seen? That's news to me, Velvet. That is news to me. In fact, I think I just used Google Maps within the last, I did the coach Steven Kocher video. I think I used Street View. I think I did. Yeah, that's news to me, Velvet. That is a little perplexing. I don't know. Louise, what got you going into doing Unfound? That is a long answer, Louise, but a Q&A episode is coming up here in April that I'm sure I will surely answer that, because that is a common question that I get. It was not a certain case. I can tell you that it did not start from a certain case. Deborah says she watched the Panky video, had to stop and start to absorb his replies. Very interesting. Yeah. Indy also To Live and Die in LA. Great movie. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he did direct that. Thank you, Indy. Now on that topic of Star Trek, this is something that's going to be coming up in April. It's another interview that I will be doing. And the woman who hosts it is a former coworker of mine at Star Trek. In fact, she is one of two people, only two, who were there from the first day that Star Trek got started in like preparation in like 1997. And she was there for the final day when it closed in, I think, September, October of 1998. She was there for 11 years. She's only one of two people, and the other one is a guy named Kirsten, who I know as well. I was only there for 4.5 years. So she was there for like 3 years before I was, and then she was there for like 3.5 years after I left. So I spent that amount of time there. But after Star Trek, she is now a professor at the College of Southern Nevada in communications or something like that. Well, she hosts a podcast now. And the podcast, I'm going to say she's been doing it since last summer, maybe. It's called Think It Through, the Clearer Thinking Podcast. So you all can go now look it up. But I found out that she was doing this podcast about, I guess, what you would say about thinking. So the title, hence the title. And so I stay in contact with her. She's on my friends list. And I said, April, you have to have me on your show. We have to make that happen. And she says, okay, I'm going to make it happen. We absolutely got to do that because, of course, when you talk about missing persons cases, thinking these things through, thinking these cases through, do things make sense? It's certainly a big part of doing what we do. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then I saw her post something yesterday or the day before about an episode of her podcast. And I said, hey, April, what the heck happened? I thought you were going to have me on your show. And she got back to me right away and says, yeah, it's going to happen. We're going to do this in April. So April is April A. Bear, Hebert, is the host. But we're going to do this in the month of April. So next month. I'm guessing it's going to be recorded like we do for Unfound, record it and then plays at a later date. I don't think it's going to be live. Maybe. But she hosts the show. I'm Think It Through, the Clearer Thinking podcast. Hebert. And she's fantastic. April, great to work with. Love her a bunch. When I started there, she was actually in management, and then she actually decided to get into the acting side of it. And she's done other acting gigs in murder mysteries, like dinner, you go for dinner, but then there's like a crime play. You're all characters in a crime play. What's that called? I forget. But I know she's done that in the past, and she's hilarious and she's great. And she used to have the Christmas parties for Star Trek way back in the day. So I cannot wait to do a show with her. Of course, we're going to be talking about Unfound and everything, but I can assure you, I got to believe that we're going to talk some Star Trek stuff. So for all of you, even though you get to see this side of me on the live show, which maybe you don't get to see or hear on the regular episodes, you'll probably get to see another part of my personality, another part of my life when I talk to April, because I'm guessing some Star Trek stories will come out, and it'll be fun. And April is a hoot. She is a hoot. So, like I said, sometime she says we're going to make it happen sometime in April. I'm really, really looking forward to that. But in the meantime, please check out her show. Once again, Think It Through, the Clearer Thinking podcast. I'm guessing it's on iTunes. I see when she posts, I just see it myself, and I don't go to iTunes anymore. But for those of you who have iTunes, I'm guessing it's there, and like a lot of other podcast platforms, just like where Unfound is, I would say in the similar places. And she is great, and I just cannot wait. You just never know, and when you're talking to April, what's going to come up. So there's that. So check that out, and then you'll hear me there sometime in April. I'll be doing a show in April with April. And you should know, I have another friend, April. I had two friends named April when I worked at Star Trek. There was April A. Bear, who does the show, and then there's April Huff, who also worked there as well, who is also a very, very close friend of mine, but a different person. Okay, let's move on to this. I've talked about how we started this new pilot project, a special project, and the phone calls have started this week. I've started to talk to people who are in the think tank. I talked to a few of them on Monday. I talked to someone yesterday. I talked to another today about these disappearances, older disappearances or older episodes going back to 2016 and 2017. These are particular disappearances that they've picked out themselves. And we've kind of gone over the facts. I give them my insight, but these people will be working on their own. And I made very clear with all of them so far that I'm not their boss. Okay, I'm not going to be checking in on them. I don't need updates every day or anything like that. This is something I'm supporting them. I give them advice. They run into any problems, I'm here to help. I've put some of them in contact with the guests from those episodes who have agreed to talk to these people. But it's happening. It is surely happening, and it's starting this week. As I've tried to tell all these people, there's no rush. I would like for them to be able to put in 2 hours a week doing whatever, a phone call, internet research, or just simply collecting the information and make sure they understand it, make sure they haven't missed anything. But I think it's going to go well. But as I've told them, this isn't something where we're looking to solve all of this tomorrow. There's a reason that some of these disappearances are over 30 years old and still unsolved. There's a reason. But I think it's worth it to go back and take another look at these particular disappearances. And most importantly, I want to make sure that these guests understand. Now, unfortunately, we don't yet have enough people to cover all of those older episodes from 2016 or 2017. But I want everyone to know, everyone out in the public, the guests, and everybody else, whoever, that we haven't forgotten about these people. Just because we're 4.5 years in, because we've covered over 200 disappearances, does not mean that I've forgotten, we've forgotten, the audience has forgotten that all of these disappearances that we covered very early on in Unfound's existence, we have not forgotten them. All right. And this is a way to make sure that those people understand that. All right. So, so far, so good, even though it's in its infancy, and we'll see what happens. Some of the disappearances is not the full list, but just to give you an idea, Rebecca Gary, Eric Franks, Joshua Guimond, Helen Diamond, Charlotte Paulus, and a few others. I think there'll be 7 or 8, at least Craig Frears. There'll be 7 or 8 that we will be working on. Again, they'll be working on it. They'll be consulting with me because I still have a podcast to do. I still have people to interview and everything that needs to be done to make sure the episodes happen every Friday. But I will be in an advisory role and giving them advice as things happen. And I have full confidence in these people. My impression is they're going to be getting out of their comfort zone with what they're going to be doing, but I think they're going to be fine. I really do once they get going. So it's happening. I don't have a name for it. It's just called a pilot project, a special project that came to my mind, something that I wanted to get started in 2021. Let me see what everybody's saying here. Debbie says, sounds like you've worked in some cool places. I have, Debbie. When you live in Las Vegas and you work in entertainment, I think that's going to happen anyway. You're going to run into famous people, entertainers, and you're going to have unique jobs that don't exist anywhere else. So I certainly believe that's a large part of it. Boston asked me, hi, Ed, what made you decide to leave Vegas? Oh, baby. Just felt I got into kind of a rut. Truthfully. Hard to believe you could get in a rut in Las Vegas, but kind of did. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I necessarily now regret leaving there. A lot of things have gone very well here in Florida. I live in a very nice place and everything else. But there is a part of me that misses Vegas. Of course, the past year, Vegas hasn't been Vegas. Of course, we know why. But, I kind of miss going to the sports book, watching some games. Not a big gambler, but maybe putting a couple, bucks on a game or something like that. I used to play a little poker, and there's just the overall excitement that goes along with living in Las Vegas. You always feel like you're at the center of the world, always people flying in and everything. And I love the hustle and bustle, and I didn't realize that until I moved to Florida, and things are a lot slower here. And so there's that. And like I said, not complaining. All right, these are not real world problems. These are just Ed problems. So I do miss it at times. So just being honest. But I really, unless somebody asks me about it, Boston, and I'm more than happy to answer the question. Unless somebody asks me about it, I really don't think about it But I've told my dad in so many words that when he passes away, whether it's tomorrow or next year or 100 years from now, that I probably will make plans to move back there. And probably that's where I will ultimately end up for the rest of my life. We'll just have to see. You never know. But Vegas and I have a lot of great memories there. And when I think about me kind of getting into a rut there, it was not the city's fault. It was my fault. And just made a couple choices that I probably shouldn't have made that kind of put me in a place where I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to try something else. And so I moved here to Florida, which is where my brother lives. My parents at the time were coming down here to vacation and everything. And, of course, I get to see my brother at least every Thursday when we go to trivia. And I have a lot of friends from disc golf and everything. But there is that, idea of being in the center of the world that is good to me. And it might even be different. I live in Clearwater Beach, but I don't live in Clearwater Beach. My address, send me a package. It says Clearwater, Florida, 33767. But I don't live in Clearwater Beach. Clearwater Beach is like directly north of me, about a mile. And it very well may be if I was living in a condo on the beach in Clearwater Beach, and that's certainly always happening up there, I might feel different. It might be different. Where I live here, although there's a lot of people, it's fairly slow. Up there where you see like spring break videos and everything, that's like a mile north of me. So it's just a little different. Eileen says she's going to check April's podcast out. Kathy says her daughter's name is April. Screaming says, I read somewhere that Gene Roddenberry was inspired by the Rancho book. I don't even know what that is, Screaming. Gene Roddenberry was a weird cat. Weird cat. Certainly. Not a guy I think to really look up to. The more I think about it, I think that he kind of just got lucky with Star Trek. Of course, it only ran for 3 years back in the 60s, but then it just had a cult following and built. But I think if you were really to look into Gene Roddenberry's life, he's not really a guy that's to be respected, other than starting Star Trek. Eileen says that April Bear's podcast is on Apple Podcasts. Awesome. Thank you for pointing that out, Eileen. Everybody go there. Subscribe, please. Twinkle, the Rebecca Gary case is fascinating. Yep, you know me. I treat them all equally. Twinkle. Boston says it's not easy to make a living in Vegas. Well, Boston, Vegas is a fairly cheap place to live. The thing is about Vegas is you don't necessarily need to have a really higher education to make good money there. But that certainly was not the reasons that I moved from there. It was not about making a living or all of that. It was just other things. So, but Vegas, I would recommend it. If anybody said to me, I'm thinking about moving to Vegas, I think that's great. Just don't live like a tourist. Just treat it like you're living in any city. Don't go gambling every night. Don't go to see shows every night. Don't go to the expensive most expensive buffets every night and everything, and they'll probably be fine. If you live like a tourist, then it's going to really be bad. Beauty says, what an awesome life you've lived. Oh, behave, Beauty. It's just the way things have gone. I like adventures. Debbie says, sometimes you need a change. That's true. Eileen says, I need to get my kids grown and then I will look at going back. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to live back in Pennsylvania? Louise asks. No, not for a second. Not for a second, Louise. Okay. It's so expensive living right by the beach. It can be, Kathy. Just depends. Indy says, my brother lived in Vegas for about 10 years. I love going to visit him. Yeah, like a different feel. I miss going there. Yeah. Satin B says, Ed, you wouldn't believe how much St. George, Utah has grown. We're 2 hours north of Las Vegas. And I remember you talking about how you've been there. The traffic is a nightmare. I remember going to St. George. I saw it get big while I was going up there for like 4 years, Satin B, with a job that I had, certainly. For sure. Going through Mesquite, Cedar City, all of that area. Oh, yeah, I know. No doubt about it. Do you know what they say? 50% like, 50% talent. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move on to something else. Maybe I need to bring this up. I got an email yesterday. Somebody was a little upset because they were watching the videos that here on the channel and saying, man, your videos have so many ads. And that was news to me because I have to be honest that when I watch the videos on my computer, on my laptop, for the videos from Unfound, I don't see any ads. But I guess it just depends about the browser and if you're watching on your phone and everything else. And what I've discovered is that surely if you watch a video as soon as it is posted, like within a few hours, then you're just going to get hammered with ads. That is not my fault. I do not put those ads in there. That is totally YouTube's doing. So for this video, if you're watching it right after it was completed because you missed the live show and there are a lot of ads in it, that is not my doing. You know my attitude toward ads in general. Now, I will say, though, that we do use YouTube as a moneymaker for the program, although it is not a huge moneymaker by any means. Certainly minuscule compared to other YouTube channels. Minuscule. But I just want you to know that that is not in my control. Yes, I approve that ads can be put in these videos. That is certainly, other than that, though, pretty much out of my control. So, like I said, what I've noticed, though, is that as the video becomes a day old, 5 days old, a week old, 2 weeks old, there will be less ads in it. Why is that? Because YouTube knows that when videos get watched the most right after they're posted. So that's when they want to run the most ads. 2 weeks later, you might get a few, and that's about it. So I just want to let all of you know that if you've run into this and you're saying, man, this new video Ed just posted, it has like 17 ads in it, that is not my fault. So I just want you to know. All right. Just doing that public service announcement. That I have to tell you, that is the first email that I've gotten about ads in videos on the YouTube channel since we started the YouTube channel. I don't know, 3 years ago. But being that came up, okay, I'll talk about it. Hey, there's Marlene. Marlene, what's going on, Marlene? I know Marlene. Hello, Marlene. Hello, I just came out. We had to do errands this evening. Milo needed his cat food. Yeah, I got it done. Yeah, you got to feed your cat, Marlene. I do not need your cat starving because you're watching the live show. That makes me feel guilty. Had to go to the store. Well, that's fine, Marlene. You got your things to do. Delane, I wondered about the ads. I thought it maybe if I had a YouTube subscription, there would be no ads. No, not true. Delane, not true at all. All right. Very quickly, since this Friday will be the last episode of March, you know what that means. Before the next episode comes out next Friday, the newsletter for April will be coming out. And if you are on the list, then you'll be getting it. If you are not on the list, then you won't be getting it. So if you'd like to be on the list, the email list, and get the newsletter, please contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And I will get you on the list. So, yeah, we just seem to be going through these months so fast. So fast. It just seems like I wrote March's newsletter. It's just, I don't know where the time goes. But be looking for that. April 1st, April Fool's Day, next Thursday. So next Thursday, be looking for the next newsletter. Twinkle says, yes, I've seen lots of those ads, but didn't mention it. Well, that's what's going on, Twinkle. Marlene asked, did I miss a lot? Of course you missed a lot, Marlene. You've watched these live shows before. I talk about a lot of stuff on these shows. So you did miss a lot, but you luckily, this is the 21st century where anything can be rerun, right after. Let me move on to this. There was some Tom Brown news that I'm sure you saw that was posted. Somebody did post it in the group. That at some point this year, allegedly there will be a grand jury that will come together, and I guess a prosecutor, district attorney will present facts regarding Tom Brown's disappearance and death to determine if there is a reason to move forward without, to believe that it was murdered, that he was murdered, that a murder occurred in his death going back to November of 2016. I got to tell you, has this not already been decided? And I'm not here to be a cynic or anything else. I can perfectly believe that somebody murdered Tom. Can perfectly believe it. And in fact, as some of you know, in private quarters, I've thrown around, some speculation like that. But I can tell you on the record that the facts have not changed regarding his disappearance. They have not changed since his remains were found in, 26? In early 2018. No facts have changed. Now I know what you say. Well, there could be facts that we don't know about. Well, in August, we now know all about that meeting that got recorded unethically. I wouldn't say illegally or immorally, but unethically. We know by who. Nathan Lewis, former sheriff Nathan Lewis, did it. And it was clear in that meeting that they just don't know how he died. Now, I don't know how you would prove a murder if you don't know how a person died. January 2019. Yes, thank you, Kathy. It was 2019. Thank you. So, yeah. So it was 2.5 years, or 2 years and some months. Thank you, Kathy. I just don't know. I can believe that this grand jury was put off because of everything that went on with COVID-19 over the past year. And I think that things are loosening up, at least in Texas and Florida and some other states, maybe not New York and California, but, I'll believe the grand jury is going to happen when I know that it's been scheduled. Now, I know it's supposed to be secret and nobody that's going to be in there is allowed to talk. And I believe all the legalities. I know there's reason things exist for a reason. But I also know regarding judicial proceedings is a lot of pronouncements and everything are made. And then when it finally gets down to when people actually get under oath and everything, things change. This is no different than when you've seen, a famous person, a famous athlete get caught drinking and driving. And he denies it. And his lawyer comes out and says, we could totally dispute these charges. We look forward to our day in court and everything. And then a week later, the guy's taking a plea and he gives up his driver's license and everything. Nothing matters until everybody has to be put under oath or anything. And things get scheduled and all of that. I just can't help but be cynical about all of this. I just can't help it. Heard a lot of promises regarding this case, going way back to 2018 when Unfound first covered Tom's disappearance before his remains were found. Lots of promises. None of them have come true. So we shall see. But to me, the definitive decision was made in August of 2019 when all those people got together and kind of went, I don't know what we can do about this. Now, how is that going to change in 2021 when, and trust me, I haven't talked to Penny for quite a while. That's nothing against her, nothing against me. Just have had no reason to. But still, I have a lot of people who live in that area who, do keep in contact with me and anything's going on. I've not heard anything. And these people, are there. So I am cynical. I know there are high hopes and everything else. All I would tell all of you is to really, really, really restrain your hopes regarding this if it happens. That's what I'm telling you. All right, moving on. I did a Unfound Now concerning the disappearance of Kirsten Brueggemann. Hope I pronounced that right. And this is just like Jason Landry's and some of these other disappearances that we've just covered on the regular Unfound show. People walking off and not being found is something that's hard to understand. And I don't know, I could do Unfound for the next 50 years. I don't know if it's ever going to be something that we're ever really, really going to have a 100% grasp on. Because if you watch that Unfound Now, you know the facts, or maybe you just read about it anyway before I ever did the Unfound Now episode, that she's with her friends. She decides she's going to leave and walk off in Indianapolis. There's a video of her walking down the street by this YMCA, and poof, gone. And she wasn't walking up like into the mountains, into the forest anywhere, to bring up David Paulides before, into a national park or anything. She was just in a community in Indianapolis. She was right by the city of Indianapolis's police department, their main headquarters. She's gone. And it's been almost 3 months now. And that's the reason I picked her disappearance out. As you would expect, when I choose to do an Unfound Now, I have a lot of different choices. And it's just, I tried to give my best analysis that I could. I think at this point, anything is possible regarding her disappearance. But it's one of those things. I would not be surprised if information comes out that there is proof that she was abducted and that she was murdered. Or I wouldn't dispute that if somebody said that. On the other hand, it would not surprise me at all if tomorrow somebody found her remains in that general area and she just died from the elements or something, kind of just like Crystal Morrison did, but at the opposite extreme. That wouldn't surprise me either. So that's why I chose to do the disappearance of Kirsten Brueggemann. It's I think that we need to start getting a better handle on these kinds of situations where it's a possibility that the person did walk away. Now, in having a discussion today regarding the special project that I talked about, the woman that I was talking to asked me, well, what do you, because we were talking about, I don't want to give away what disappearance it was, but we were talking about the one she's going to be working on. And, she asked me, well, Ed, what do you mean by a walk away? What does that mean? Walked off. And my assistant Cherie asked me this about a month ago. What I mean by walking off is this person caused his or her own disappearance all on their own. I'm not saying that necessarily the person went out to commit suicide. I'm not saying that the person decided to become homeless or change their identity or anything like that. All I'm saying is the person became a missing person all on his or her own. Had a particular life and walked out of it for whatever reason. And like I said, could do this show for 50 years, and I don't know that if I'm ever going to have a 100% grasp of it. Maybe I'll get to 95%, but it's never going to be 100% because you just don't know what's going through people's heads. And that is the most important part, I think, when trying to understand disappearances that could be walk-offs. Then you have to start thinking about, well, what was in the person's mind? Well, like recently with Ceiha Taylor's, in which my personal opinion was that she did run off or walk off. Well, that might be easier to understand, being that she was an addict And she did seem manic that day. And people do get paranoid. These are all well-known, documented issues with people who are addicts. And they think things are true that aren't. So it's no surprise then that they run off or walk off and are afraid of things. And, that's why they do that. But with Kirsten and maybe some disappearances that we've covered on Unfound, and maybe some disappearances that you know about, where drugs are not an allegation. There's no allegation that this person was an addict or was high or was drunk or anything else, but still it seems walked off. Those are the tough ones. Tough to analyze. So, and being that I just talked about Tom Brown's, of course, there are a lot of people that do believe that he's parked his Durango where it was found in Canadian, walked those 12 miles and died where his remains were found. How he died, we don't know, but people believe that. And what I would say is that if that is true, if at some point in the future it is proven that that's what Tom did, dumped his Durango, walked those 12 miles, and somehow died, committed suicide, or whatever else 12 miles away, then with these walk-offs, these people disappearing, then anything's possible. I think I said this going back to Jason Landry, the analysis for Jason Landry. If we're to believe that Jason Landry walked 12 miles away from his wrecked car, then he's never going to be found except by accident. Then anything's possible. These are tough. But we'll continue to still work at them because that's what we do at Unfound. Eileen says, my daughter is playing basketball indoors now in California. Wow, things are getting relaxed, I guess so. We've been doing that for a while here in Florida. Louise, maybe these 411 cases don't just happen in the wilderness or woods. Well, I don't even accept the premise of these 411 cases, Louise. So I just can't answer that. Screaming. I went south on Google Maps from where she disappeared, and there's a strange spot titled Mystery Place or something like that. I somehow missed that. Screaming. I don't know what to think of that. Maybe it's one of these escape room type businesses that I've never been to. Maybe it's something like that. Indy says, didn't she leave her friends to go bowling? Well, that's a story that's out there, Indy, but the bowling alley, which was only like 600 feet away, was closed. If she got there and it was locked, why didn't she just turn around and go back to the pub? No one knows. Debbie, weird. They're saying Jeff left beside Jason Landry did leave his clothes in the road. Yeah. Louise says they always blame hypothermia for taking clothes off. I can't believe that. It's not always in cold weather. Well, hypothermia, of course, can cause your mind to think weird things, and taking your clothes off in the coldest of weather is one of those things. That's true. Yeah. Okay. Where do I want to go next? I'll have you know, I don't know where this, it doesn't seem like this ended up being anything, but a woman had contacted me regarding Julie Weflen and said that her uncle, all these years later, is still considered a suspect, even though I believe he is deceased, and it's not Will Parks. I passed her off to John Polos. I just want you to know, it doesn't seem like anything came of that. I'm going to call John tomorrow to follow up on that. But he texted me, and it did not sound like a very positive conversation that he and this woman had. So if I can give you any more details next Wednesday, I will do that. I got one more question to ask, and where are we? We're, okay, 10:24. Okay. Karen asked me, Karen, are you in here? Karen asked me, where do I get the names for the episodes? And this is a great question. It's amazing, but I don't think I've been asked this question before. Even though, of course, giving titles to the episodes is a very obvious, it's obvious what I do with those, that I do that. I'll tell you, Karen, that I like to work with themes. I think themes help people understand ideas better or stories better, facts better. I believe that. And I think it's one of the reasons that somebody asked me, although I don't do a lot of fiction reading these days, I think I did get a question within the last couple months of, um, what kind of fiction books do I like to read? Well, usually when I am looking at fiction and reading fiction, my tastes usually go to books that have themes about something. It's just not some action book. Although I did read some Tom Clancy books. There's really no themes to them. They're really just action books. Jack Ryan doing this, Jack Ryan doing that, Jack Ryan saving the world, and that's great. And Tom Clancy was a very successful author, but I have to tell you that I'd rather read like The Tale of Two Cities, and not because I'm a geek or I'm a snob or anything else, but The Tale of Two Cities and a lot of other books going back, they do work with themes. Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, those types of books. Of course, The Tale of Two Cities, it's a far, far better thing than I've ever done. If I don't want to give the book away, but the guy who chooses to take the place of a man who's going to be executed, so the man who's going to be executed can go off and run off with the love of his life. And this is where the guy says it's a far, far better thing than than I've ever done. Of course, The Tale of Two Cities was the best of times, it was the worst of times, and you find a lot of books like that. It's just not about the characters and what they're going through. It's actually making commentaries about living, about life, about making choices, and I love that stuff. It's for the reason that, for example, I've given example of the book Darkness at Noon, a book that was written in the 1940s by Arthur Koestler, which once again is a book that's just not about a guy who is on death row in the old Soviet Union waiting to be executed. There's a lot more things going on there about life. And so when it comes to naming the episodes, I think that the episodes stick in people's minds more when you do have a theme that you can look at what has happened in this disappearance, and kind of relate it to people's everyday lives. Why? Because most people in their lives are never going to experience a disappearance. That's why. And so when I do the little beginning, that 30-second part at the beginning, and then the music plays, and then that part that's usually about, I always look at it on the timer on the podcast. It usually goes from about a minute to about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. It's a way to kind of get your mind in the mood for what you're going to be listening to, because I know all of you are coming from different places. Got a lot of things on your mind. Who knows what you're doing right before you decide to listen to the Unfound podcast? I don't know. Everybody's life is different. So giving these disappearances names in the titles, working with themes, and making sure that is a theme that comes out not only in the beginning but also during the interview, and then at the end, I think makes that you're not going to forget that episode very quickly, because you have a lot to remember. There's over 200 now. So it's a lot of things put together, Karen, because I love to work with themes in the books, the novels that I've written. Certainly themes about life and morality and choices and rights and independence and individuality. Things that I like to write about have come out in the works that I've written, novels, although I'm not saying the novels are great or anything. But so I bring that over to doing these episodes, but I think it's also helpful to the listeners. So that's, and once in a while you'll notice that kind of, it's kind of a turn on a phrase. For example, this Friday's episode, you've heard of the movie Strangers on a Train, which is an Alfred Hitchcock movie, which actually formed the basis for the movie from the 1980s, Throw Mama from the Train, with Billy Crystal and Danny DeVito. Well, that's kind of a comedy version of Strangers on a Train. Well, this episode this Friday is called Strangers on a Street, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So there you go, Karen. I hope that answers your question. Let's see what everybody is saying here. Jill is saying, "Oh, there you are, Jill." Marlene says Alan White's disappearance in Dallas is still a mystery as well. Yep, poof, he's gone. Yep. Allegations that he might have been meeting another man. I don't know if there's any proof of that, but it's a rumor that's out there. Yeah. Louise says, I did Great Expectations for my exams at school many moons ago. Me too, Louise. Kathy says, Louise, I read Great Expectations isn't Great Expectations has Pip, right? In 9th grade, 52 years ago, right? Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, it is a great question. I love these questions that are new and they're like so obvious. Why do you name that? It seems I would have gotten that question a while ago. Kathy says Strangers on a Train, excellent movie. It is. I love my Alfred Hitchcock, Kathy. Okay. Maybe one more thing here. Glendine Grant, recent article about, of course, Jessie, her daughter, is still missing from Las Vegas. And so, I got to tell you, it's so weird. I don't know if I've mentioned this recently, but, I lived in Las Vegas when Jessie went missing. And it's been very strange for me to experience something like that. And I remember when it happened. I remember it being in the news. I remember the coverage that she, along with these other women, that similar disappearances all got at the same time. But it's not believed that they're connected, by the way. In fact, I think we talked about that way back in 2016. I did with Glendine. But it's so weird to experience it as a member of the public, seeing it in the news and could have never guessed that 10 years later, I would be starting this program called Unfound, and I would have Jessie Foster's mother on the program. It was just I can't believe it. It's just, it's so crazy. So to experience me living there, knowing she vanished in the city that I lived in, and then same way with Stephen Kocher. He disappeared 7 miles from where I lived in 2009. Same thing then for that to become part of my life. It's not something that I'm watching, but now it's become a part of my life. It's just something could have never guessed. Sheree is writing that Amanda Fravel is still missing. Yeah. Going back to what, Sheree, 1986, I think it was. Yeah. Still a huge question. And Sheree, you've done some really nice work on that. I know, I'm probably not recently, maybe, but getting to know Amanda's sister, and there's still I think Sheree, as Sheree knows, there's still a couple possibilities with her disappearance. But what I was going to say with Glendine Grant is that there's a new article. She's talking about these scammers who have tried to take money from her over the years. Telling her stories, send me $1,700 and I'll tell you where she is. And this is what happened to her. And she's buried in this guy's backyard. And it's a dang shame. You just wonder, is this just a thing of the 21st century, or is these kinds of things gone on, since the beginning of time? Have there always been trolls and scam artists and con men? Everything? Probably, but there is the perception that they've gotten worse. They haven't gotten better; they've gotten worse, and probably that's a factor of the internet Internet's a great thing, but it's a tool like any other. A tool can be used for good reasons. It can be used for bad reasons, like a hammer. A hammer is very good if you have a nail to pound into the wall, but if you're going to use the hammer to hit somebody, especially if it's not in self-defense, but attacking somebody, then that tool becomes bad. So, but Glendine Grant, if you're friends with her on Facebook, she had posted that, and maybe you can check out her stories about how scammers are still trying to get to her all these years later regarding Jesse's disappearance. Suzanne says, hopefully Anthony Crime Blogger will be back with another case. Probably not until this fall, Suzanne. Just like with Heather Grotman, they appear probably once a year. And he was just on for the Gayla Shaper disappearance from like November, Suzanne. So it's probably going to be a while before he's on again. Same way with Heather. Of course, she was on last year. And so about a year later, of course, she was on just recently. Louise, yeah, that's weird, Miss Haversham. Shree says, same thing happened to Melissa. Remember that guy that claimed Amanda was thrown off the bridge? He reminded me so much of Steve Pankey, except innocent. Yeah, Shree, yeah, you know, the weird thing is there aren't any bridges in Las Vegas. I don't remember specifically that story, though, Cherie, but if you're talking about any bridges in Las Vegas, there aren't that many because there aren't any rivers. So, don't know about that. Yeah. Let's move on to these couple news items that they're kind of connected. If you will remember last year, we talked about remains being found in Alabama in the Conecuh National Forest. And you'll remember at the time that there was a possibility that they could be Chip Campbell's. It was eventually figured out that they were the remains of Starr Mulder, who is a woman who disappeared back in 2016, in June 2016, right before Unfound started. And now her husband has finally been charged with her murder. And what it seems is that they seemingly had evidence that she was dead, but they were afraid to go to trial, afraid to charge him because no body. And now that Starr's remains have been found, I guess they were found, there was a bullet hole in her forehead. And now her husband, Thomas Edward Whitehurst, has now been charged with her murder. Let me just read some of this. Covington County investigators found Mulder's body about a year ago when they revealed a call about human remains in a small slice of the Conecuh National Forest. It took about a year for the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences to identify the remains as belonging to Starr Mulder. And upon discovery that the situation was not a cold case, but rather an active investigation, law enforcement in the Southern County immediately notified Elmore County investigators, which is where she disappeared from. Tuesday, so yesterday, Whitehurst was officially charged in connection with Mulder's disappearance, bringing the 5-year investigation nearly to an end. Still, there is a question of motive and what, if any, connection Whitehurst has to Covington County. While the circumstances surrounding Mulder's disappearance have been a mystery, her final moments are no longer unknown. According to ADSA, the Forensic Science Department, Mulder had been shot through the forehead with a small caliber bullet. Whitehurst, now 65, is now facing a murder charge. Franklin said his deputies watched Whitehurst's home in the Redland community Tuesday morning and stopped his car as he left for work, serving him with a warrant on a charge of murder. They took him into custody without incident. Whitehurst was booked into the Elmore County Jail with a $1 million bond. So there you go. That was something I brought up last year, remains being found in that forest, and we now know who those remains were and the circumstances under which she disappeared. And now her husband has been charged. I think we can think of many, many, many disappearances that we've covered on Unfound that probably we believe that that's what happened to. Angela Green, Marion Hurley, just to name a couple recent episodes. So if you didn't see that, I wanted to make you aware of that. Meanwhile, Louise and Kathy are having discussion of classic novels, which is interesting. Okay. One more item from that area of the United States, Milton, Florida, which coincidentally, once again, is where Chip Campbell went missing. Authorities have identified the human remains that were found on October 28th, so going way back to last year, near exit 26 off I-10. State Medical Examiner's Office said the remains belonged to Stephen Mitchell Swiney of Milton, Florida. The 47-year-old had been missing since November of 2015. According to the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office, the office says there's no indication of foul play. Stephen was last seen when he told a family member he was going out for cigarettes. And once again, the remains were found not far from a major highway, and he had been missing since 2015. And I believe, once again, back at the time when his remains were found last year, that there was also a possibility that they could be chips, but those were not chips either. So there you go. Screaming says, The Elephant Man is my favorite film. Wow. Okay. Screaming, love The Elephant Man with it. Okay. Talking about some classic movies and books. Okay. Well, we are now at the 10:41 mark. Don't have any more topics. Did I cover all of the topics? Special project ad, newsletter, Tom Brown, Unfound, Julie Weflen. Okay. Let's move on to this Friday's episode. I'm going to state right up front, there is not much of a mystery for this episode that for Friday. It is the disappearance of Pearl Pinson from Vallejo, California on May 25th, 2016. The guest is her father, James. This is an interview I did on Sunday, and I need to thank Marky Davis, a friend of the program, who made it possible for myself and James to talk and for me to interview him. Thank you, Marky, if you are watching. And as I stated a little earlier in the program, the name of this episode is Strangers on a Street. And the reason that is we know what happened to Pearl. And it's just now a factor of finding where her remains are. The general facts of her disappearance: she was 15 years old. She was walking to school in Vallejo, California that morning, May 25th, 2016. And about halfway to her bus stop, she was attacked by Fernando Castro. Witnesses saw this happen. A witness tried to stop him, but Fernando pulled a gun. And so this witness backed off. And then Fernando there was a shot that rang out. It is believed that Fernando shot Pearl right then and there, and then dragged her across this freeway, over like this walkway of this freeway, over to his car, and they took off, probably putting her in the trunk of his car. And then over 24 hours later, far away in San Luis Obispo, we're now getting towards Southern California, and it was realized very quickly, right away, what happened, once again, because there was a witness, and the witness could identify who did this guy, Fernando Castro. Well, over 24 hours later, they were on the lookout for Fernando and his car. His car was spotted in the San Luis Obispo area of California. Police chased him. He went into a kind of a trailer park, ditched his car, ran into somebody's house, tried to take a woman hostage, but she somehow got away. And then Fernando attempted to kind of drive and shoot his way. He took the woman's truck and tried to shoot and drive his way out of the area. And while doing so, was shot by police and died. Upon seeing his car, looking at his car, there was blood found in the trunk. It was identified as Pearl's, and a carpet in the trunk of this car had been cut out, possibly to wrap her up in it or to cover up evidence. We're not quite sure. And that happened way back end of May 2016, and almost 5 years later, Pearl's remains have still not been found. There were some sightings. They were able to eventually put some sightings together up in the Vallejo, California area, Marin County, Contra Costa County, but Jenner, California. But still, it is still unclear what Fernando did with Pearl between dragging her away and then him being, shot and killed in the San Luis Obispo area. No, of course, we talk about with her father. Is it possible that did they have to kill Fernando? Could they have kind of got him into custody some other way in which he was still alive and he could have revealed where Pearl is? We just have to keep in mind, we know many times killers who are caught do not reveal the locations of their victims. So we just have to keep that in mind. So this is not your usual type of disappearance that we cover on Unfound, where we don't know what happened. If there is a suspect, we don't know who that person is, or if we suspect it, the person's not been charged with anything. This is a disappearance because this is called Unfound. We're looking for people who are missing and trying to find them, whether they are deceased or alive. So Pearl and her remains most likely are out there somewhere. It is believed that she was died on the day that she was attacked. So how do you go about finding Pearl? How do you do that? Marin County. Yeah, Marin County. Yes. Kathy. Yes. So, and Kathy, Louise, they are not sure. Kathy, I will tell you, this comes up in the interview, and I don't mind telling all of you. We talk about that. James says there's no way that Pearl and Fernando knew each other. There is no proof of that, not on her phones, not on her social media sites, her friends, nothing else. It seems Fernando knew Pearl, but Pearl did not know Fernando. It does seem that being that he lived in the neighborhood, that he might have become infatuated with her or something. And it does sound like Fernando wasn't 100% right up here, but it does seem that he was maybe stalking her and she didn't know it. And once again, we talk about that in the interview. So once again, this Friday, the disappearance of Pearl Pinson, May 25th, 2016, from Vallejo, California. Of course, when I think of Vallejo, I think of the movie Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal, or is it Gyllenhaal? Because they talk about Vallejo and Zodiac killer committing a couple murders there in the late 60s, early 70s. Well, this is that same area. And I think Vallejo wasn't, is it not that did the Night Stalker operate in that area too? I don't know what it is about that area. But her father, James, is the guest, and the episode is Strangers on a Street. And being that we just talked about themes, talk about the theme of crime and how most of the time when people are murdered, they're murdered by people they know. So, but we have a situation here where these are two strangers and still something bad happened. So I think that's about it. Let's just see everything that we did tonight. Talked about how beautiful it's been here, doing some disc golf practice and videoing it. And from that video, I decided, you know what, Ed, you need to lose a couple pounds. Saw my sister and my brother-in-law and my biological cousin this past Saturday in Leesburg. Got a new phone. Talked about the Ceiha Taylor poll. Tomorrow, Dr. Telesco, my interview tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Eastern. Do not forget. Talked about how the special project is getting off the ground. Talked about ads in these YouTube videos out of my control. The newsletter, Tom Brown, the grand jury that's allegedly going to happen this year. Unfound Now with Kirsten Brueggemann. Once again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A little thing on Julie Weflen. I want you to check out my friend April Bear's podcast, Think It Through, the Clear Thinking Podcast. Going to be on it in April. Talked a little about Glendine Grant, talked about Starr Mulder's husband being charged with her murder. Remains from Milton, Florida, that were not Chip Campbell's. They were of Stephen Swiney. Took some excellent questions and then finished up giving you the general information on this Friday's episode. That's all I got. And Deli says, love the Dr. Telesco episodes. Deli getting in late, but he or she is writing a very nice comment. Love the Dr. Telesco episodes. Thank you, Deli. I think everybody does. Yeah. All right. Sheree says, great to hang out with it, y'all. Keep your head on a swivel. Yeah, keep your head on a swivel. Go to the grocery store. You're coming out. Don't be looking down at your phone or just your car. Make sure you're looking around. Okay, you never know. You know, when you can get attacked like that. Don't have your face buried in your phone when you're out in public. That's all. That's all. Great night. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for giving Unfound a little piece of your Wednesday night. And you'll hear me on Friday. Or you'll see me tomorrow night, Dr. Telesco show. You better be there. Good night.